Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com, and I'm joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE Monday Night Raw. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You have any guesses why?
John, tonight we say goodbye to the Thunderdome. We say goodbye to the Performance Center era, to the
You got
pandemic
it.
era. This week, this Raw was the last show inside the Thunderdome. This Friday, back on the road. John, you're going to be at Money in the Bank with the rest of the live crowd on Sunday. And then next week, next Monday, we'll be talking about the first Raw with live fans since the beginning of the pandemic, really. Which feels like forever. So yes, it is a very exciting time, and maybe that helps make the Tonight Show a little easier to swallow, at least the parts so maybe we didn't necessarily care for. But yes, it is a very exciting time, and we do want to maybe raise a proverbial toast to the Thunderdome. I mean, for me, just to say it all at the top of the show here. There was a time last year, we call it last March. I thought wrestling was shut down. I thought, the pandemic, everything was, sideways. As someone that covers wrestling for work, needless to say, I'm glad it didn't. We still got a great year of wrestling overall there. Plenty of things to enjoy. Not
It
perfect,
was
but
it was so crazy last night to watch how they posted a flashback to the night that Triple H introduced the Performance Center when they ran that SmackDown when he was on commentary with Michael Cole. And to me, it really does feel like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. But
yeah.
they've came a long way since then, and I hope that we never have to go back to that. But it's nice to know that they have a contingency plan in place now if they need it.
And obviously, yes, so let's hope that they don't need to ever use that contingency plan because oh boy, yeah, it's been a long year plus of the pandemic era, and we are obviously very glad that, as I always say every week, the wrestling world is returning to some semblance of normalcy. That's a very good thing. Pointing out the comments here, it's both Brock Lesnar and Michael Kirschbaum's birthday, so a very happy birthday to Michael. Happy birthday for you. As we were just saying, an exciting time with the Thunderdome. We're saying goodbye to that, but we're saying happy birthday to you, Michael. And also, as DJ pointing out, rest in peace, Paul Orndorff. And yes, also bidding adieu to the Thunderdome. But the wrestling world did lose a legend earlier today. Paul Orndorff, definitely a notable name in the wrestling history. Just to go
Yes.
obviously went down in the history books. So obviously, yes, definitely a big loss there as well. And again, obviously that is a very unfortunate, but obviously, as we were saying, a less unfortunate loss will be that of the Thunderdome. So, John, Monday Night Raw. Let's get into it here. For me, I want to talk about this right off the bat because there wasn't a main event match tonight. No, there was a main event development. We had the VIP lounge, and at first I thought, okay, I don't really know what we're doing here. The last match of the night was Rhea Ripley versus Natalya. We had a solid call it 10 minutes, and I didn't really know. We knew that we were going to get the VIP lounge, but I didn't know how that was going to really be this big show closing angle ahead of the pay-per-view on Sunday. John, you and I have talked about it before. I've made it pretty darn clear myself that I'm not a big fan of the Lashley's ladies thing, the Godfather Lashley thing they've been doing, the fun, the party boy, whatever you want to say. I haven't really cared for it myself. I was a much bigger fan of the badass Bobby Lashley we saw months ago, the guy that won the title in the first place. And I thought, even sitting here today, I thought there are ways they could have kind of told that story better. The money or hey, even the ladies could have gone to his head. Something, the power, whatever you want to say. And they didn't really do that in a very nuanced way. It was more just like one week he had ladies and that's what we got. And then Neshkir's plain and simple, since she hates the ladies or the girls with Lashley. I mean, yeah, it's been it has not exactly been a highlight of Raw. So needless to say, when we got the VIP lounge tonight, MVP and the ladies came out with the goal to make Bobby Lashley feel better, because earlier in the night, the first match on the card, he lost to Xavier Woods, which was a very surprising outcome. We'll talk about that as well. But first off, we'll go a little out of order here, because the big story coming out of the show was the fact that Lashley said, enough of the BS, enough of the ladies, enough of the partying and the champagne and all this. He even for a second teased like splitting with MVP, but really he was just saying enough of this external stuff, the distractions. It's time to refocus on what really matters, which is beating people up, winning, and just being successful, and obviously makes a lot of sense. And heading into the pay-per-view with a refocused Bobby Lashley here, I've got to imagine that that does not bode well for Kofi Kingston. We'll talk about the Xavier Woods match in a minute, but John, what do you think of this development for Bobby Lashley? And I guess to pair it with this question from DJ Tessier, could we see this maybe even not immediately, but down the road lead to a Bobby Lashley face turn?
I'll answer that question first because I think it's a very clear no. I do not see at all Lashley becoming a babyface. If anything, I would think MVP might eventually turn on. I've already seen rumblings of MVP turning on Lashley and aligning himself with Keith Lee. Keith Lee's in every rumor now for some reason. It's like, oh, it's always Keith Lee's going to do this or that. But what I really wanted to say was I thought this was very, very well executed. Over the past few weeks, I did not like how they were treating Bobby Lashley. He had been holding very steady at number 2 in my WrestleZone Universal rankings for probably the better half of 5 or 6 weeks. He was obviously behind Roman at number 2 for almost the entirety of since the rankings have started. For the first time this week, he slipped. He was no longer number 2. He was number 3. We'll get into further detail about who was number 2 later on in the show when we talk about further segments. But yeah, Lashley was number 3. I thought that he was slipping a little bit. MVP, and literally, I literally said word for word in the rankings that released before Raw today that MVP is not helping the cause right now with Bobby Lashley. He's causing him matches. He's getting into his head, and it was kind of foreshadowing of what we saw on Raw. Maybe Lashley read my rankings and he was like, you know what, he's right. But when it's all said and done, a very rare occurrence too where they let a curse word slip live on Raw. I mean, obviously when they do that, it's intentional because they want to get a point across. And I thought it was very well done. And I did mention after the show on my Twitter that I want to see Bobby Lashley squash Kofi Kingston this Sunday. I honestly do want to see a Brock Lesnar type beatdown where Lashley just comes out and dominates in like 2-3 minutes, and that's it. And then that leads to something more significant afterwards. I think you have to capitalize on the fact that Bobby Lashley tonight made a statement that he isn't going to joke around anymore. He's going back to the serious. I mean, he's over the past couple years, he did this thing with Lana where he had a girl by his side. Then he had the Hurt Business. I saw some people wondering maybe after he turned on MVP that maybe Cedric and Shelton would come out by his side and like be his tough guys now, kind of like Jinder had back when he was champion. But I think MVP will be in check now moving forward with Lashley, at least for a while. This was, like I said, much needed. A great way to kind of end the ThunderDome era. I thought maybe when he was destroying all of this equipment in the ring, maybe he would go out and start destroying some of the ThunderDome aspects to kind of like get to keep in character and the story and stuff like that. But yeah, very well executed. I thought it was well done. I'm excited to see where it goes. Very clearly, Bobby. I think what they did tonight shows us that they have something planned for him for the rest of the summer, and they have a direction for him now. And I'm curious to see what that is.
I'm curious as well. I don't know what that direction. I feel like he has a direction. I don't know who that opponent is, if that makes sense.
I still think it's that who shall not be named, but I still think that's where they're going, even though it's kind of been said that that's not where they're going. I just don't see where else they would be going. But nevertheless, it's nice to see that they have plans for the return of a live crowd because look, it's very clear that they are kind of taking this in a completely different direction now that fans are back. They're taking it a different approach and more serious, I'd like to think.
It's what it seems like. And, as I said a minute ago, I think that's a very good thing. Looking at some of the comments here, I mean, we're talking about how Lashley's saying enough of the BS, enough of this, the distractions and everything. Demetrius Duvres saying he feels like Lashley will beat Kofi and Big E will cash in on Lashley. I don't see that. I more see that I think if I'm reading that properly, he means like immediately. We're going to see Lashley beat Kofi, and then right away it's like at Money in the Bank, they
Yeah,
go
I think
cash
that's what
in.
he's implying as well. I don't
I
think that's going to happen, and mainly because I think that the Money in the Bank ladder match is going to be the main event of the show, the last match. So
I think that's probable, but I would also be perfectly okay if Roman and Edge went on last, even though
sure, okay, yeah, I
you know,
forgot about that. I think we can agree though that it will not be Bobby and Kofi,
no,
especially
no.
if it is going to be a squash match. I could see this being like I still think the women's Money in the Bank match will open the show, so it's almost like Bobby and Kofi will just be like in the mid card somewhere. I mean, we've seen this before with Bobby's title reign, where the WWE Championship match has been a mid card match on a pay per view, and there's nothing wrong with that because this pay per view is kind of. I mean, they got 6 matches. I'd say it's pretty stacked for a Money in the Bank card and for fans to be back. So, but I think coming out of this, it's important to just keep in mind that I think we don't know, but I think they certainly know who he's going to be facing at SummerSlam now, and I think they have a story for what's going to happen. But while we're on the subject, we might as well talk about the fact that he did have a match with Xavier Woods, and he lost that match, and that's kind of what sparked this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, this one was definitely surprising, and in a vacuum, like when I was watching it, this was the first match that went on the show. Seeing Lashley lose like this, it was a great match. I really enjoyed it. I thought both guys looked great. I've been very happy to see Xavier Woods getting this relative solo run. He's still like a tag team guy. He's still very clearly like Kofi Kingston's buddy, but at least it's more than like just having him tag team matches or just having him in tag team feuds. Like he does have this kind of this beef with Bobby Lashley, and he's turned in some great performances against Riddle, Randy Orton in recent weeks. So having him in there with the WWE champion and in a competitive match, let alone beating him, obviously only helps him. It was with a roll up, as you might expect. A clean one, by the way. Kofi Kingston didn't distract Lashley, nothing like that. So, this definitely served to pretty much lead to what we saw at the end of the night, where Lashley said, hey, Kofi was right. And Kofi Kingston had said a couple weeks ago, Lashley looks more beatable than ever. And ironically, even before we heard Lashley say that, I agreed. I think I tweeted about it. Like, yes, Lashley has looked more beatable than ever. And if not for what we saw at the end of the night, I'd have a bigger problem with this, where I'd be like, okay, Lashley took this loss here. He got pinned by Drew McIntyre a couple weeks ago. I think that was before Hell in a Cell. And maybe even another loss at some point pretty recently. But
Yeah.
needless to say, we've come a long way from just a couple months ago when he never took pins. He was very, very protected in that sense. So seeing him lose to Woods here was surprising, but in this case, it was the fact that the destination that mattered more, where he's like, all right, I lost, and I'm going to respond to that by, stripping away all this other stuff. Like, I like that, for me, when there are clear reactions, theological, connections from one point A to point B. It's a very small thing. The bar is very low, but seeing that, I was very pleased.
One would think next Monday in Dallas, he'll probably get some pretty good heat. Even on Sunday. I mean, I keep forgetting on Sunday. I mean, Sunday and Monday, he's probably going to get some pretty serious heat from the crowd, which I think that's what they wanted to do. I want to address a comment from Craig real quick because I keep overlooking this. He says possibly The Fiend versus Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. And I just have completely forgotten about The Fiend the past couple months. But, I mean, that would be a possible, name to think about because, like we've discussed plenty of times before, Raw doesn't really have a whole lot of people. But nevertheless, I thought this was a good part of the show. From the match to the segment at the end to the in betweens, backstage interviews, they played the most prominent role in the show tonight, and I think it was very well that they did that. But I mean, other than that, what was your other favorite part of the show tonight aside from Bobby?
I guess the segue, we're talking about Money in the Bank, and we can talk about the ladder match itself. But I think for me, probably my favorite part of the show had to be the Falls Count Anywhere match. I mean, I'm a big Ricochet fan. I've enjoyed seeing him have this, let's say, a mini feud with John Morrison. I wish it's had more depth than being annoyed by the dripstick. I think these guys deserve better than that. They've qualified for Money in the Bank. They're going to be in Money in the Bank. And I said it last week. I think either guy could conceivably win Money in the Bank, or at least when they qualified. I was like, there's a path to get them there, but they need to be booked seriously. They have not done that at all. So, call me crazy, but I do not see Ricochet or John Morrison winning Money in the Bank. But they did put on a great Falls Count Anywhere match. I enjoyed it a lot. Ricochet, immensely talented, one of the very best high flyers in the business. I will argue that any day. I mean, some of the stuff he does, absolutely crazy. He hit a diving splash through a ladder. He hit a 450 off the barricade, a shooting star press to the outside. What all these things and more. Morrison looked great as well. We had the Miz in there. I like the one spot where Ricochet rode on the wheelchair to attack Morrison at one point.
God.
Spot. Riddle comes out at one point and tips the Miz's wheelchair over, and then mocks him for not being able to get up, which was a little. If you read too deeply into it, it came across a little not so great. But if you're from a simplistic comedy spot, it's fine. But Ricochet won, and again, as someone that has for months been wanting to see Ricochet get some wins like this to be featured more prominently, I think this is very good. I'm happy about it. But again, I'm sorry, I don't see either of these guys winning Money in the Bank. And even now, John, I said it. I feel like at least 2 weeks in a row. I thought Riddle might be maybe one of the favorites, but now on the night when he said Toy Story 2 was his favorite movie, I don't know.
Oh God! So I got a lot to say about all these segments in Money in the Bank, and I'll start by saying that our Ricochet has come a long way in the past couple months, to the point where, I mean, he's number 18 in the WrestleZone Universal rankings. Like, he's in the top 25, where he wasn't even wrestling on Main Event a couple weeks ago. John Morrison, even, he's 17. Like, that's John Morrison, Ricochet, 2 guys in the top 20 of all superstars in WWE that have a major storyline, relevant part of the show. But like you mentioned, also, I don't think either have a realistic chance to win. So, oh well. But Riddle, man, Riddle had me laughing pretty loud tonight, many times. Man, it's just, me and you were crapping about how bad we didn't like this just months ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I look forward to this. Like, it's hilarious. He clearly is good in the role. He fits the role. I don't know if he's coming up with this stuff himself. I feel like maybe he is, but if he isn't, props to whoever is, because it's good. It's funny. It fits his character. Ricochet, Nikki Ash, whoever it may be, or look at him like, what are you talking about, buddy? And then it's just the way that he's saying, like, I don't know. Just Randy Orton's character does not fit the way that Ricochet, or the way that Riddle describes it. Like, he'll be there and he'll say, oh man, he's going to come over and we're going to have Mexican burritos. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it's fun. Like I said, I guess not in a good or bad way, but I guess for me tonight, having that promo where he was talking about spaghetti burritos and Toy Story 2 and Westerns, I guess it just drove home the idea that he probably won't win Money in the Bank, because again, I think all three of these guys, Ricochet, Morrison, and Riddle here, could have been positioned to win, and I don't think they have been, because they just have not been presented seriously in that sense. So I think for me, like tonight, I like the Toy Story 2 line, and there's some lines that I liked, but usually like on a good night, I think that like I like a couple lines of, like, let's say a dozen, which is fine. Like that's improvement. I used to be at a 0, so like I'm coming around slowly on liking Riddle. So I thought this was fun. Herman Dakar in the comments saying he loved the Matt Riddle, Nikki Ash, or Nikki Cross segment. Riddle looked high. Yeah, obviously that's the joke. It's fun. The last week he was on top of the ladder, and obviously the natural joke about him being high. Like it's fun stuff. Harmless, right? It's totally fine. I do miss Randy Orton. I hope we don't know what's going on with him. He's been absent for a couple weeks now. So obviously RK Bro has been a one-man show for a little while now, for a couple weeks since Orton's been gone. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, Riddle, it's fun, harmless. It's hit or miss, I guess, for me.
It's entertaining.
Yes, it is entertaining. regardless, it draws a response. Even when I'm not laughing along, I'm either laughing at or I'm feeling something. And obviously, apathy is the opposite of entertainment. So yes, it is entertaining in that sense. And then Nestor is saying that Riddle does do a good job with it, as you said, John. He plays the role well, and that's what counts. So on to some other things here. Leading in the show, WWE had teased that we would get some sort of follow-up on the fact that Jinder Mahal stole Drew McIntyre's sword. Mahal, or the Jinder Taker, as his new nickname, rolled up on a motorcycle for the second week in a row. Sure, and he brought out the sword that he had stolen, and basically he said, I stole your toy. If you come out and apologize, I will give the toy back to you. More feuds based on objects, as we've seen in recent months. Fine, cool. And basically, he unveils the sword, and it's broken. McIntyre is upset that Mahal broke his toy, but he reveals that, oh, you got a replica sword, I have the real one, and he proceeded to destroy the motorcycle. John, what do you think? What do you think about this? These guys feuding over a sword. We talked about it last week that they do have all that history, but at least these first 2 weeks, they're definitely focusing on maybe some more surface level things.
I'm fine with it. I think, like I mentioned when I put out the rankings as well, Drew McIntyre's now not in the top 10 anymore. He's number 11. But I was thankful that he is in what I consider to be a mid-card feud, finally. He's out of the title picture. He's out of the main event scene, which is usually a bad thing. But I think for him, it's a refresher. People always ask me, what do you have against Drew McIntyre? I don't know why you hate Drew McIntyre. I don't hate Drew McIntyre. I am tired of. I just felt like he was. I don't want to say overutilized, but he was shoved in our faces a little too much. Had a championship reign I thought was a little too long, and was in many repetitive matches that I just got tired of. Plain and simple.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of the general feelings Johnny McIntyre, and I think for months really at this point. I would say at least since he lost the title, maybe. I would say at the latest WrestleMania Backlash, which was back in April, or maybe even no, I think that was May. That we were saying, hey, maybe we should pivot away from McIntyre being in the title scene, and then we got the Hell in a Cell match. Now he's still in the Money in the Bank match with the chance to get yet another title shot. So that does seem to be the idea here, that this is long overdue. Having him focus on something else. I think based on what we saw tonight, I feel like McIntyre could have pretty much be about to win Money in the Bank and have Mahal cost him. I think to add a little more heat to that feud there.
I think he will have that moment where, like, because the way he's been pushed the past year, you just have to have that moment where, like, it's obvious that he's going to win, but something happens somewhere that he doesn't win. Unless he does win, in that case, I feel like he's not going to have a pleasant reaction from the crowd. But who knows? Maybe he will. Maybe he'll get his moment there, and then he'll be Money in the Bank, and people will be upset or people will be happy. You don't really know, especially the Raw people. Like, the first time you see the Raw people will be at Money in the Bank. You won't have, like, SmackDown will have their reaction before, but you don't have the luxury of knowing how your winner is going to get a reaction until it's over and he already wins. Like, they don't know if Drew or whoever is going to get cheered or booed until the event. So, and obviously they're going to have to know, what's going to happen before they find out the reaction. So
that is definitely an interesting dynamic where, we're not going to have kind of a trial run where SmackDown will, like, when we see Lashley on Sunday, when we see McIntyre, the other Raw superstars, it'll be kind of just be the first time we are seeing them for the first time the live crowd is. So
let me get your thought on that. I see I rubbed some people the wrong way when I said that people would be upset if Drew were to win. How do you think people would react if Drew McIntyre did win Money in the Bank? Do you think it would be mostly positive, or do you think there would be quite a few people upset about it? I mean, what do you think?
I think at best it'd be a mixed reaction because, of course, Herman Takar pointing out, Drew for sure it was, if not the MVP during the pandemic era, at least one of the MVPs. He was WWE champion. He was the guy. He was the the face of the company during a very, very challenging time, needless to say. but as we were saying, I think there are plenty of people that are, I don't want to say tired of him. That sounds harsh, but that want someone else to get the opportunity. And this
Someone
match,
that needs it.
yeah, in this match, we're getting several comments, even just in this chat, about Biggie. Biggie should really win this. Biggie should get the opportunity. Biggie has not had that chance yet. Hermitakar pitching for Biggie. I think Demetrios Aduvis said it a couple minutes ago as well. But Biggie, I definitely view as someone that needs an opportunity, that hasn't gotten it. Even though we were just saying a couple minutes ago, I don't see Riddle or Ricochet, other guys, on the Raw side, necessarily being in a position where I could see them winning. I mean, there's still this idea that McIntyre winning would take the opportunity away from someone else in that sense, and that's just the way it is. Whoever wins, like, that means someone else isn't. But in this case, I think that people might react to that more than being tired of McIntyre. So I don't necessarily think he'd get booed, in the sense that we're not at John Cena like 2013 levels of like people being so tired of him and like not wanting to see him win at all.
Fair.
But at the same time, I do think there's probably at least a solid group of fans that feel something not too distant from that, and Luke got to start on the kind of in line with what we're saying, or in a similar vein, saying Drew McIntyre or someone from SmackDown will probably win, whether it's Biggie. SmackDown does have more credible contenders. You've got Biggie, obviously. To me, I think he's one of the favorites. You've got Seth Rollins. It would be very believable. He's been out of the title scene for quite a while now. Kevin Owens could happen. He had a long feud with Roman Reigns earlier in the year, so now I'd want to see that. And also King Nakamura. So I think any one of those like feels more probable, or if not possible, than the Raw side, other than Drew. We've got, I think Nestor Curse is here predicting Drew McIntyre winning for the men's, Liv Morgan for the women's. I mean, two safe picks. I think Liv Morgan is definitely one of the more likely candidates in the women's match. We can talk about that in a minute, but Drew is the very safe bet in that. Obviously, he's a two-time champion now. He's been the face of the company. Obviously, they want to have him atop the card. Maybe they want to have him in the main event scene still with this return of live fans. But yeah, I've got to think that the better play here, at least for me as a fan, I would want to see Biggie or somebody else, something new. I say it pretty much every week. I just want something different. And McIntyre, has been in the title scene for months now, so that's where I come off on it. I don't think McIntyre will get booed, especially. I don't think he's gonna get booed when he comes out to the ring. If he wins, I think it might be.
I agree. I don't think he'll be booed during the entrances, but I think if he wins, it might rub people the wrong way. I just think that they're expecting a surprise win. I don't know if you would call Nakamura winning a surprise. I certainly would.
I would.
But I think Drew would just be the obvious choice that just wouldn't sit well with people. Similarly, like you said, we were going to start talking about the women's match. I think that if Asuka won, I don't think it would sit well just because she won last year and that she doesn't need to win. Drew doesn't need to win either.
No. Asuka doesn't need to win. She had a long, albeit not great run with the title, and through no fault of her own. Obviously, as we often quote Luke Goddard, it's all about the booking, and that's just the way that it went down. Alexa Bliss makes sense. Michael Covington saying Bliss might win, depending on whoever gets that final spot. We do know that there is one final spot remaining, and Natalya got one of the final two spots today. Don't necessarily see her winning. She could, but I'm not really seeing that, at least as prediction basis. We've got many comments already tonight about, as Craig Backlund saying here, if we see Becky Lynch in the final spot, I don't see Becky Lynch being in that spot. I think if she comes back, and Neshker begins right away saying that she does think Becky will get the final spot, I don't see it. I mean, I think maybe Sasha Banks, if they want to go with that. Johnny's still shaking your head. Michael kind of agreeing about Sasha. I don't know. I feel like Robert and I were talking about this on the SmackDown show. Like, a surprise makes sense. If not, I don't know who. Other than Hermitakar predicting that it'll be Toni Storm. John's still shaking his head. John, what do you think?
The last participant is going to be Sonya Deville. I am.
Came out. Yes. Okay.
Even before the report, which I saw the report too, I really do think Sonya Deville is ready to return. She has the authority to just say, "I'm the last one," and I could see her winning. I really could see her winning the match. We thought SmackDown was hurting for women, and they were until this week when they just brought three of them from NXT to now be on SmackDown and add Sony into the mix, and suddenly SmackDown seems like the better women's division than Raw. In a division where once Sasha returns, you have over 10 women on the division. Bianca Belair has turned into the face of the division very clearly now that Bayley is going to be out for probably a year with an injury that she sustained.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at the SmackDown Women's division, I don't have anybody in the top 20 at all besides Bianca Belair, who's number 5. So, like, I think it'll be Sonya, but of course, tonight on Raw, we had a fatal 4-way match, which I think these are always pointless. You bring 4 people that are going to be in a common match and just have them wrestle for what they call momentum, which, okay. It was between the 4 women on the Raw side. Naomi, who has kind of had a rough week because of developments involving, her husband, Jimmy, who had his 4th DUI last week. And I don't know why people feel the need to blame Naomi for it, but that's a whole different story. So she deactivated her Twitter, had a rough week, came out tonight, faced Alexa Bliss and Nikki Ash, and who's the 4th one? Who am I missing?
It was Oscar, right?
Oscar, yeah, Oscar. And Nikki Ash won. I was a little surprised. I thought maybe Bliss would win or even Oscar, but Nikki Ash won. People are finally getting used to the character. She's getting it over pretty well. She likes it. The name change is official. She's no
Yes.
longer Nikki Cross.
Yes.
It is officially Nikki Ash now. The Ash is for ASH, almost a superhero is what it's supposed to mean. Whatever. She's rolling with it. She likes it. But what did you think of the match and Nikki Ash getting the momentum? I think at least maybe you're not on the same page as me, but I was going to say I think we can agree that she probably won't win, especially because she won tonight, which is usually a giveaway.
Right.
But what did you think about the women's match and the build up to the Money in the Bank match on the Raw side?
I mean, yeah, you could. I see what you're saying that it's pointless, but I thought it was a good match. I thought it was a good way to kind of showcase the 4 women. We were just talking about the women's division over on SmackDown. This was a good way to kind of showcase the women's division on Raw. The non-title women's division, I should say. So I liked it. As you said, a little surprising that Nikki won. I guess for me, especially, yeah, like you just said, because she won, I feel like she probably won't win. Whereas kind of before this match, I thought she maybe had like an outside shot of winning, where the underdog story. She's had momentum lately. She's got this new character.
Side note: we're getting the exact same match this Friday with the 4 men instead of the 4 women. So there's a fatal 4-way men's match between the 4 participants. So, but the fact that Alexa Bliss didn't win, I mean, maybe that is kind of a good thing, because we mentioned that usually if you win this kind of match, you don't have the momentum. And they did refer many times tonight that Alexa Bliss could use her powers or whatever you want to call them to win this match. And I certainly think that might play a role in it, but you have to keep in mind that we're going to be back in a live environment with live fans, and it's harder to pull this kind of stuff off when there's a live audience and you're not pre-recording segments. So we'll see what they can do with that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They definitely are going to have less
fantasy things.
Yes, because otherwise it's the only real things they can do in a live setting are
like pyro,
acting, or pyro. Right? I was gonna say like the hypnosis kind of stuff that that's kind of hard to come across with a live crowd like this,
or turn the lights out.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's still possibilities there. Maybe we'll see her kind of lean away from that more into like what we saw back in January, where she was more in ring powers of like that it turns into this better or stronger competitor, maybe something like that. And yeah, maybe there's still things like Hermetic pointing out the Undertaker and Kane use powers of live fans, pyro, whatever you want to say. Yeah, there's still possibilities, but
Papa Shango.
Right, we see plenty of supernatural stuff all the time, so I wouldn't necessarily write it off. But maybe we'll find maybe more of a middle ground. It is worth pointing out that beyond Nikki Ash winning here, Eva Marie came out during this match. Beforehand, yeah, Bliss had a Dewdrop and Eva Marie on her playground,
randomly.
pretty randomly. Um, Sure. And yes, while I don't understand why it happened in the first place, it did turn out to be important where Bliss basically said, "Oh, I invited Dewdrop. You're just a fun bonus to Eve Marie." Eve Marie took exception to that and came down to kind of distract Alexa Bliss. Bliss got in her face and screamed at her, and then Dewdrop beat Bliss up, and Bliss disappeared. So just like I was saying about Mahal and McIntyre, maybe Marie / Dewdrop will interfere at Money in the Bank. Although DJ wondering if we'll see Dewdrop and Eve Marie implode in Money in the Bank. Well, based on this, I feel like now we're getting this.
They're aligned.
Yeah, they're with the what's the saying? An enemy of my enemy is my friend. So like,
Yeah, they're
now
coexisting now, which they haven't been before. Dewdrop clearly is still annoyed the fact that Eva Marie basically like shames her on TV for being ugly or different or whatever you want to call it. So I don't understand. I mean, eventually at some point with the live fans back now, she will turn on Eva Marie, and Eva Marie will be this big monster heel. She's never going to get cheered ever. I mean, people want her fired like every week, and she just got rehired like a couple months ago.
yeah,
So I mean, she's one of those superstars that is just easily disliked and doesn't have to try to be disliked. And I don't think they'll play a role in the show this Sunday at all. But if they did, I mean, that would lead into a feud with Alexa. Interestingly enough, as a side note, with all that, for the first time in as long as I can remember, we did not have anything with Shayna Baszler or Nia Jax tonight on the show at all. Maybe
good
you're happy
point.
about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There are times where I get so used to seeing someone that then if one week they're not on, I just kind of
Don't notice.
yeah, it's very ironic in that sense. Yeah, but no Jax, no Baszler, no Reginald, and now it seems like Bliss is shifting her focus to Eve Marie for whatever reason. Maybe as we've been saying for months, maybe that'll mean Baszler could shift her focus back into being a more legitimate, tough competitor and less in these questionable things of Alexa Bliss, I'll say. So on the subject of the women's division, we otherwise we got a match between Rhea Ripley and Natalya later in the show. Good match, Natalya, one of the better veterans in there. You know, I mean, anybody that's in there, they up her game and she can make anybody look good. That's just the way she is. Ripley is someone that has been at times criticized on her main roster run. I remember her first couple matches with Asuka, people didn't seem to really care for. So I think this was a good match for her, especially coming off of last week where she had a crutch fight. I think she needed something a little more satisfying, I guess, a little less bad, I guess, because that crutch fight was something else. So a nice match, a clean win, nothing to complain about. Neshikura saying Natty's the best, lover. Yeah, Natalya's great. She's a woman tag team champion. Rhea Ripley wins. Charlotte attacks her after the match from behind. And for me, John, the way they did this, Charlotte, hit a chop block and then she locked in the figure four and she was attacking her knee and she really wrenched it in and Ripley was screaming in pain. And I thought, hey, it feels like they're doing this injury angle, maybe because, again, I've said it, I think just kind of across the board, really, with this live show on Sunday and just moving forward, it almost feels like any show with live fans now has the potential for title changes, but especially these first couple, especially this first pay-per-view back. I feel like, whereas in the Thunderdome, that was not a factor. Now it's like, okay, the fans are back, especially the first show. WWE might say, hey, we want to, get those shock reactions, or if it's a babyface winning for the pop or the heel winning for the heat. Obviously, we talk about it every week. Ripley, not really a heel or face, but losing the title to Charlotte Flair, I think that would draw a reaction of some kind. So now with this injury angle, and John, you and I think you may have predicted it before, it's pretty easy to predict that maybe these two aren't even done after Sunday, that they could stretch it to Money in the Bank. How do you do that? Ripley loses the title on Sunday and stretches us to SummerSlam with this injury angle being a pretty easy way to do that.
This is so interesting because even though I wouldn't say we've totally taken a dump on this feud, but we clearly have said that it's confusing because we don't know who's supposed to be the good guy and who's supposed to be the bad guy.
Right.
Ironically enough, I actually have Rhea Ripley number 2 right now in the rankings, and Charlotte Flair at number 4. So I have both of these women in the top 5 as 2 of the best women in the company right now. And look, I get that the story hasn't been good, and it's mostly because we don't know who we're supposed to cheer and who we're supposed to boo. Now, regardless of that, and I do still believe that if we do get any title changes this weekend, it will be this one, which I do think will happen. I do think Charlotte will defeat Rhea Ripley, and I do think we'll get a rematch in some stipulation match at SummerSlam between these two to officially end the feud. We've already mentioned that Charlotte wants to get her numbers up. This would be 13. This would be 13 championships, which I think is she already has the most out of any woman of all time, I think, by far.
Yeah.
And she's clearly not even close to being finished yet. The injury update thing was interesting last week, and then tonight kind of building off of that, which, it's whatever they want to do. I just hope the match is good, and if they do continue this another month, they make the story a little bit more interesting because Sunday's like the big test here. Like, this is like when those entrance music hits, like, what's the reaction for each of these going to be? Part of me still thinks that Charlotte will be booed and Rhea will be kind of mostly cheered. That's just because that's what people. I mean, at WrestleMania, that's what it was. That's what people were used to before. So maybe things develop or change over time. But if you were given 100 points right now with this match, I would say 60-40 in favor of Charlotte. Where would you put it?
I would say the same thing. Because it's hard to say, SummerSlam, Becky Lynch might come back or these other things. And, there are options with Alexa Bliss and some other paths forward here, but it does feel like this makes the most sense, at least for now. And again, the injury angle was pretty telling where it's like that WWE can be kind of heavy-handed with that, where it's like, all right, injury angle, title change, rematch, and that's how they do it. I hope, as you just said, I hope that they find something to bridge that gap, or not the gap, to bridge that last month from July, end of July into SummerSlam there. That's a little more interesting than what we've seen so far. Nesta Curse agreeing that she thinks Charlotte's going to win. And we're getting a bunch of woos in the comments there, and maybe in support of Charlotte Flair. DJ Gassier pointing out that there are 2 title, or at least 2 tag title feuds. One of them will be at Money in the Bank. We did learn that AJ Styles and Omos will defend the titles, not next week as on Raw as initially scheduled, but at Money in the Bank on Sunday against the Viking Raiders. So tonight we saw the 2 teams in tag team matches. This was Omos's first singles match. I thought he looked all right. Didn't have an issue with it. I saw a bunch of people comparing him to the Great Khali, which is not the best comparison.
No.
So it's one of the things that I'll say with Riddle. I don't find it like offensive or like he's not bad. Like, he's a big guy. He's not going to be like doing things Ricochet can do or anything. Like, and he's not like, I don't know. I think maybe he's getting a little bit too much of a knock. People would be maybe too harsh on him. But regardless, almost defeated Eric and Ivar, pinned AJ Styles. So I know a lot of people were very surprised about that, myself included. Ivar pinning a former WWE champion. Backstage before the match, I think it was in a promo, I guess on both sides. Ivar and Eric were doing that thing where like they're kind of implying they're cute and like all this kind of stuff. The same stuff they did during their Street Profits feud. AJ Styles was calling them barbarians and smelly and stinky or whatever. Fine. But DJ wondering if we think there's any chance for a title change on Sunday. Again, I think we talked about it last week, and nothing here leads me to believe that the Viking Raiders will win on Sunday. I mean, as I will say, as I said a minute ago, the heightened potential for title changes is there, but I don't really see it. When you have a guy that's as big as Omos, I feel like you've got to really build up a team to win. If Randy Orton is back soon, I've got to imagine that still feels like the best play for SummerSlam, having RK Bro win there. I don't know. I would imagine based on what we've talked about before, you'd probably agree at least the Viking Raiders won't win on Sunday, right, John?
Yeah, I absolutely think that this match will be won by AJ Styles and Omos, and I still believe that SummerSlam will see Orton and Riddle teaming up against them to dethrone them. I don't see Viking Raiders winning. I mean, it's great they're back in the title picture. This match has been delayed for so long. I just don't think there's anything to it. I don't think there's any chance that we can see a switch just kind of on the spot like that.
I agree. There's a case to be made for it. Vanessa Kerr is saying that she thinks Viking Raiders will win. I can see it happening, just again for that kind of shock upset kind of thing, but not. I don't think it's likely at the very least. And on the same token, DJ wondering about Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose potentially defeating Tamina and Natalya. We don't have a date for that match. It's just more the direction where they're going with it. They keep interacting and facing off in various things backstage tonight. Basically, Mandy Rose was saying, "Oh, I don't like your odds in Money in the Bank, and I don't like your odds against Rhea Ripley to Natalya." And Tamina said something like, "Oh, well," she said, I don't love your odds," and Tamina was like, "Oh, I love the thought of kicking your teeth down your throat or something." I'm like, I didn't love this segment. I don't know. As for Mandy and Dana beating Natalya, Tamina, on one hand, they don't have any other teams real. Okay, we just saw Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Knox be on SmackDown, and they beat Natalya and Tamina. Other than that, they don't really have a lot of teams in the women's division on the main roster. So kind of what we were saying about the Viking Raiders. I feel like the chance is there, but still, the way that they've been booked, I don't really see Mandy and Dana as champions in that sense. So yeah, I think that's where I come off on that. I'm not loving this feud. I'm glad we're getting something here. I've said in the past about the women's tag titles. I'm glad we're getting something rather than the titles just being off TV or not utilized at all. But this feud, it's not really doing it for me. Maybe
I agree.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a title match soon, and then I'd expect Natalya to win, and then maybe Shotzi and Tegan could win the titles sooner rather than later. I guess that'd be my prediction at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to approach this, but Mandy and Dana are not the answer. That's all I have to say about that.
Blunt but well said. And lastly, here, I think the last big thing we haven't really talked about on the show, Sheamus returned to in-ring action, kind of. He obviously is still recovering from his facial surgery with the broken nose. He was wearing a pretty elaborate mask, a protective mask for the nose injury. He's been feuding with Humberto Carrillo. Carrillo inadvertently broke his nose in a match, I think it was weeks ago now at this point.
Yeah, a month at least.
And Sheamus, even before that, Sheamus had not been defending the title anyway. He was doing non-title open challenges. He was beating Humberto. He was beating Ricochet. Now he finally defended the title against Humberto, but he attacked Humberto backstage, and this was the definition of a squash match. He pinned him with a brogue kick. There was a brief interaction backstage with Damian Priest. Priest helped Carrillo kind of to his feet and protected him. And then when Sheamus tried to attack Humberto after the match, Priest ran to the ring, kind of setting the stage for a potential feud there, leading into DJ's question: do we see Damian Priest being in the title picture over Sheamus? I think he means in the U.S. title scene. And yeah, this does seem to suggest Humberto could be out, Priest could be in. John, I think we were saying months ago, I think after the feud with Miz and Morrison ended, initially, even right when that happened, it was put Priest in the feud with Sheamus, probably give him the title, makes sense. He's been positioned pretty well like that, I think, and Priest has been dealing with injuries and stuff. Now he's back, so I think that would make sense. I saw one prediction saying maybe he could get a shock title win next week, even on the first Raw Back with Fans. That has not been announced yet, but could happen. But at the very least, I think that's probably in the cards sooner and later. And Nestor would agree. But what do you think that Damian could get U.S. title run?
I 100% think that he will and should. I think that he is the one that would make the most sense to dethrone Sheamus and have that reign. I just want them to have a nice feud and make it meaningful, which they certainly have so far. I think it's a great idea all around, and it was a good decision. If I had to pick anybody on the roster that I would, like we mentioned before, that should either not just be the one to dethrone him, but the one to challenge him.
Right.
A lot of people said that maybe either Drew McIntyre or Jinder Mahal should be. Well, now they got their own thing going. Damian Priest had nothing to do. It makes the most sense. The only other one I could have seen was Jeff Hardy,
Yeah.
which I was hoping that with the fans coming back, he's getting his new theme song back and everything. He needs something to do. I just hope they got something for him. But I mean, Priest is up there in age too. I think he's almost 40, if not.
39. Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
39 or so. So
So
that,
I
yeah.
mean, he's no spring chicken. So his time on the main roster is not like Rhea Ripley, who's only 24. So I'd like to see him do something good.
I think, age, I'll say, I think in WWE we've seen many times age has been a limiting factor in some ways, but in other ways, age can be just a number. I think if Priest really takes off here with this run, a run like Batista could be in the cards, where Batista got started pretty late and still enjoyed a very successful career in that sense. So, but I think these next couple months could be very influential in his overall career in that sense. Not to put too much pressure on it, but if it's like it's kind of almost now or never. It's like they kind of need to get the ball rolling in that because yeah, he is not a spring chicken. So Brian Schoen saying that Priest is still a little green, but he has the ability to take his game to the next level. Though he's not sure he's ready for the U.S. title. I think he's ready. I think he's proven himself at least for the U.S. title. For me, not to crap on the U.S. title, but the bar isn't that high for guys who can give as like an experimental run with the title. So I mean, Bret Hart got a run with the title back in 2010. He was like, gosh, probably like 60, or however old he was back then. So I feel like that's fair. And Neshkur's saying that he's probably ready too. So yeah, I think that's definitely could be in the cards. And lastly here, DJ asking what's next for Miz and Morrison. Presuming Morrison loses on Sunday, which I think he will. I don't know. It's weird, but if Miz wasn't hurt, I would say maybe they'd split up and feud. But with Miz being on the shelf, I don't know. We're still because obviously they're going all in with Johnny Drip Drip, so maybe they'll try and ride that out and keep up in the ante with that for the short term. Maybe Morrison could. I don't know. I was gonna say feud with Hardy to just give Jeff something to do, but in the short term, I don't really know. I feel like he might be kind of potentially lost in the shuffle after Money in the Bank. I don't want that to happen, but just I feel like that's possible. Because some
Sure.
of the other top baby faces are tied up in that sense. So and Ness was asking what Mrs. Hurt and when he's supposed to return. I think he got hurt at WrestleMania Backlash, and the diagnosis was at least a partially torn ACL. So that's probably couple months, even from now, even with a fast recovery, I think will be on the shelf for a while. So I feel like we can't bank on him to be back in the ring sooner and later. So that would be my thought, that he'll probably be on the shelf for the short term future. So Morrison, hopefully he'll have something to do, but if not, we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what he'll do at Money in the Bank on Sunday. John, you're going to be there in Well, actually, before we get there, rewind. John, what would you rate the show? This final Raw for the Thunderdome, sending us out here into this new era for WWE.
7.
The 7. Why not higher?
Yep.
Why not lower?
I thought that it was good build of the pay per view, a good way to kind of send out the Thunderdome, and at the same time, kind of develop your storylines a little more, and just kind of try to start steering the ship in a different direction.
Yeah. For me, I'd go for like a 6.9 9, 7 for me. Seven's the kind of the average for like a decent show.
Yep.
And this one felt just short enough for me. Although I will say a lot of that 6.9 is lifted up by Lashley versus Woods was very good. Ricochet Morrison was very good, and then the ending angle with Lashley saying enough of the BS, I like that a lot. So maybe I'm being too harsh, but I feel like a 6.9 is fair. There's some things I didn't really care for. Nesha Curse with an 8, Michael Count with a 6.5, Michael Covington with an 8 as well. Maybe I'm being too harsh. It was not a bad show by any means. So for the end of the Thunderdome Pandera, but yeah, not a bad show at all. It's can't complain with it. Kevin Taylor with a 7.3, so 7.5 from Warrior Rock. I might be being too harsh, but
Yeah.
But overall, the Thunderdome era is over, and that is a very good thing. We thank the Thunderdome for its services. We wish it. Though I can't say we wish it the best of luck in its future endeavors, because we don't want that to be future endeavors. We want it to be over. We don't want any more Thunderdome. We want the normal wrestling world that we'll be seeing this weekend. As I was about to say, John, you'll be at Money in the Bank on Sunday. There are boots on the ground. You're going to be there live and in person, enjoying the show, enjoying what should be a very fun crowd. So hopefully with that, on Sunday of Money in the Bank, we're going to have SmackDown live on Friday with the fans. Monday we'll have the as I said at the beginning of the show, the first live crowd for Raw since the beginning of the pandemic. It feels like forever. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a very weird adjustment period, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are as well. I'm sure everyone is. I mean, yes, Nesh Curse is saying that she'll miss the Thunderdome. I'm gonna miss it in the sense it's just gonna be such a weird adjustment. Because it's just I've gotten so used to this way of WWE. Even watching AEW, even Ring of Honor had fans back over the weekend for Best in the World last night, on Sunday night. So even with that,
Yeah.
even seeing the live fans, just my association for a WWE show, it's like I've gotten so used to this. It's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be fun. Just on Sunday, just keep your eyes on the WrestleZone Twitter feed, and of course mine down here, John R. Clark 12. I will be on site pretty early in the day. I'll be walking around, talking to some of the fans, getting their thoughts on finally being back, seeing who the fans think is going to win Money in the Bank, and we're gonna compile all that, and I'll have a couple videos and pictures online there, and of course as soon as the gates open, I'll be inside and I will try to get a picture of what the set looks like. We assume it'll be a unique set design. I'll have that also up on there, so I'll have plenty of content and information as I see it on Twitter, both via WrestleZone and my Twitter account as well.
And that everything you just said, that would not be possible without this return to normalcy. So for that, we definitely are thankful. That would be the WWE will be back on the road. The fans will be back at the shows. John, you'll be able to do all the things you just said, which is very, very helpful and it's just great to have someone right there in person. Me, I'll be in the comfort of my home, watching, covering the show from afar.
I'll be the one sending the info to him to post it on there for you guys to see.
Yes, exactly. So with that, John probably won't be doing the post show on Sunday because we'll be in at the show and in person. But obviously, we'll talk about the show when he's
we'll
back.
get somebody to fill in.
Yeah, but we'll have plenty of coverage for the show. And beyond that, John, you and I will be back here tonight on Tuesday night for NXT Art, the post show. I lost power last week. I lost power, I think, 5 times last week. I lost power during the SmackDown stream, John. I lost power during the stream.
Ooh.
My lights went out. Which was not a fun time. I thought I was going to lose power tonight. Thankfully, I'm knocking on wood. I've not lost power, so I made it through. I'm very glad about that. And thankfully, I am moving out this week and moving out of the woods, so it should not be a problem anymore, which is a very good thing. Good to get out of the woods, literally out of the woods. So yes, and with that, otherwise the Dynamite dudes Attitude cover AEW. They also do WCW written for fun Facebook and stuff. Robert D. Felice and I cover Friday Night SmackDown. It'll be on Saturday this week, and also a great stream of interviews constantly coming to you guys. I've got one in the works. I'm very much looking forward to. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's in the works, so we'll keep an eye out on all of our platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. we've got you covered. So leave a like and subscribe. And a brief thought on this question from DJ. Yes, I do think we'll see the ratings possibly go up next week, at least as maybe a little bump, right? The first show is back with fans. I imagine some people will tune in because I know that a big criticism throughout the pandemic was people saying, oh, it's not the same without fans. Well, now fans are back. So you've got, I don't want to say you've got no reason not to watch, but you've definitely got one less reason not to watch. So at least in the short term, I do think that we might see some ratings increase, again, for on SmackDown, maybe next Monday on Raw, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the weeks and months ahead. But in the short term, John, you're going to be at Money in the Bank, and you're going to be doing the one thing we do above all others here at WrestleZone. Can you tell me what that is?
Sit back, relax, enjoy the show.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.